one story that I heard from her, that her dad used to take him to lava hot springs once a year at the end of school or something, and said she was embarrassed because the dad,
That's a long way.
yeah, but once a year end of the school, so he had real ugly swimming suit or something like that.
The old-fashioned swimming suit, the
old-fashioned
body swimming suit.
Who's that, Dan?
Your dad had the old-fashioned swimming suit. You were
Oh,
embarrassed
I don't remember that.
when the
Yeah, I used to go to lava hot springs.
when the school took you to the lava hot springs, all
Oh.
the kids,
And your father
dad
fell?
went,
Oh,
and your dad was kind of showing off, running on the cement.
Oh, yeah.
And he slipped and fell in front of everybody.
with the other garage.
Yeah. No. That's
No,
another story, Mom.
I should tell about that about my dad.
We'll let everybody tell theirs.
Let her do it while she's on a roll.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, she been in a row.
Tell your story, Amber. I want to listen.
Go ahead, Mom. You can tell about Grandpa.
What?
You can tell about Grandpa.
My dad?
Yeah.
Well, to me, my dad was very lenient with us. But boy, my mother was strict. But she did, I think all of you that know her, she really was. But one time, and I don't recall just exactly how it goes, but we were going somewhere, and the scene was down by Declo, and the car stopped. Do you remember that? The car stopped, and they told him they'd come and fix it. We drove it into a service station, and I was with my girlfriend, Fontella, and we were there, and we were at the age where we'd get to laughing at everything. And my dad was just having such a hard time, and he was nervous, and they told him to drive it into this garage where they could look at it, and he couldn't stop, and he went right out the other side.
I remember Dad telling that story.
Well, he did. Well, he did.
I know you did. I've heard that story a lot.
Remember Dad would tell about they were taking pigs to the
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
market
it.
or something.
They all got
So
loose.
Declo and
Yeah, they
Yeah.
love the pig.
it
Yeah.
opened up and all the pigs were running around
Yeah.
Declo and
How many they have? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah,
They had run around, gather them up, and he said his dad would always go, poor people have poor ways.
I remember that story about Grandpa driving through the
Okay, right, yeah.
I don't remember that.
Well, I wasn't raised in Albion, so I came up here to college, and I guess the best thing that happened was meeting Glenn. He lived next door, and I didn't know that he watched me every night out his bedroom window.
He didn't want you getting dressed or anything. You were in the basement with no one.
That
No.
thing was in the,
Anyway, she said he'd sit in his bedroom and watch me out his bedroom window.
Whatever gave him the courage to come over and
Well, Mrs. Weisel was working up at the legislature. She had run for senator or representative or something, but she didn't get it. But then they hired her as a reader. So she was up there working as a reader for the legislature. And I don't know if he'd have ever got enough nerve to come over if she'd have been home. But she wasn't home, so he finally got up enough nerve to come over.
well, you also took milk over, didn't you?
What?
Didn't you take milk over to him?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I guess just before that, I knew that they had milk cows, but I pretended I didn't know. And Mrs. Weisel had told me to stop the milk while I didn't catch the milkman. And so we had several bottles of milk, and so I went over and asked them if they could use any milk. I waited till I saw Glenn go across the yard, so I knew he was there.
so not only was he watching you, you were watching him.
Well, yeah, after I found that out, yeah. One thing I did, I climbed to the top of the water tower.
Oh, we were driving by there yesterday and think, how did people?
Where's the?
Well, you
It's
get
right
in
here,
trouble
isn't it?
now. We used to do
Where's
it
the
all
water
time.
tower? Right here in town?
The water tower up here on campus.
Oh, on Campo. Okay.
What?
Oh yeah,
Is there a
yeah.
ladder?
So how did you do that?
Well, yeah, there's a ladder that goes up the side of it.
Right there.
When you get to the top, you
Why
gotta
did you
kind of
do
come
that?
back.
Yeah.
I don't know, we just
Yeah,
did
see
all
right
kind
there.
of crazy things.
Is that one right there?
And then one day I took a
that-
snake
that one
in the
right there?
girls'
Yeah.
dorm. I about got kicked out for
At
that.
the end, it's pretty
Well, you go up it, and then you get to the top, and then the ladder kind of.
I was raised all over the south, so I
I
wasn't
remember when we
raised
were
up
kids, we
here.
all snuck up there
Were
and
you,
climbed on it.
did you always
up
want
and
to be
down
a
it
teacher then?
Yeah.
a bunch of
Yeah,
times.
from the time I was second grade, I said I was gonna be a school teacher, so.
Wow.
Tell that story you were telling me yesterday about that game warden man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the beaver were damming up the creek and making a mess out in the creek, and we had the fish and game come up to catch the beaver, and he just figured there'd be a place he could stay in Albion. Well, of course, there was no place to stay in Albion, so Dad told him he could stay with us. We just figured he'd sleep on the couch like all the rest of the company did. And but he said, well, I don't go to bed very early. I don't go to bed till 8 o'clock. So we decided we'd better put him in our bedroom and we'd better sleep on the couch. And so one night, Glenn got up in the middle of the night, you know, half asleep, stumbled to the bathroom and back, got in bed. He said, something didn't smell right. And then finally I got wide enough awake to realize I crawled in bed with the old man.
How long did it take him to catch that beaver?
Oh, he was there a couple of weeks, I think.
There was a lot
But,
of
and
them.
then
You can still see
we
where
were
they
sitting there eating
Still
poached
stumps out
venison
there.
as usual, you know, that's the only meat we had. And he was saying, I don't know why anybody would poach them anyway, they're not fit to eat. Glenn looked at me and I looked at him because that's all he'd been eating ever since he'd been there. 'Cause we had venison hamburger, we had venison steak, we had venison roast, every venison stew, you name it, it was venison. That's the only meat we had. So anyway, but he never did find out he was eating venison the whole time he was there.
You should have told him at the end.
What?
You should have told him at the end. You know this.
Well, no, I never did tell him. I didn't want to get in trouble for poaching deer.
Aunt Dorothy, do you have something you'd like to share?
I'm not a good storyteller.
Oh, sure you are.
Mom, where were you married? I mean, did you get married down in the courthouse?
At the courthouse in Burley.
Pardon?
Ain't you ever looked at the pictures?
Wow. She just was asking.
No.
Is everybody, who said something about tell about what?
A story growing up in Albion. Well, she didn't.
Okay,
Or just a story about Albion.
I was always really glad that Ernie brought me to Albion because I've loved it ever since. I love the mountains we live around us, the Land Creek up by home, and it's just a neat valley to live in. You like all the people here, we just do. And that, I'm gonna go back one though, that one of my memories when I look at Margaret and Linda, wish she could be here today, and Jan, and they just grew up besides out there next door to us. And the thing I remember most about them, I think, are the one that's fun, is they used to make a playhouse down by the creek. And then when it got littered and everything, they would just leave it and just move up to another place. And when that one got bad enough, they would, that right was right, wasn't that? But anyway, I have a lot of good memories of Albion. And
How'd you?
You girls remember the table you guys used to have in your playhouses? That old
What?
round sharpening wheel?
Okay.
I was looking through pictures there at Mom's and I seen that wagon, that wheel thing, that old deal. I know where that was. I can remember that when I was a little kid.
Isn't that funny?
And I went up and I found that.
You did?
It was in a creek, and I go, no, this is where the spot was in that picture, and I got to digging around there, and I found that in the creek.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got that, the deal you gals had for your table.
That's amazing. Where is it now?
Leaning up against my shed.
Oh, wow.
Kenneth.
Once Gene got lost, or we thought he was lost, we didn't know where he was. We searched and searched and searched, wading up and down the creek and all along every place. Finally, Dorothy went home to do something. Anyway, he was asleep on her couch in the front room. He thought we were up there, and so he went up there, and he got in, and then he couldn't turn the doorknob to get out. So he cried himself to sleep on the couch, and there we were searching everywhere.
Those old glass doorknobs.
Dorothy finally went home to do something, and there he was.
When I went to leave, the doorknob came off in my hand.
I couldn't remember why you couldn't get it open.
The front door wouldn't open. And I just fell asleep, cried myself asleep on the couch.
He was only, about 3 or 4, I think.
One thing I remember about Gene, you were always crying.
Oh, that's bellyache.
Yeah.
And I remember we went up to meet the men up when they were deer hunting. We all hiked up, and he was hanging at the back, just crying and crying. And my mom turned around. He had stopped crying, and we turned around to look. And Mom says, "Oh my gosh, Aunt Shirley, he has a potato, one of those dirty, filthy potatoes in his mouth." And Aunt Shirley said, "Just leave him. He's not
You know, I think about that.
Yeah, that was always our favorite time of year.
Deer hunting.
We'd drive up the road and signal. We had a list made out. It was, I don't know,
Smoke signals, right?
short if they didn't get it, or long if they got their deer, or whatever. We had the list of names. They'd go down the list, so we'd know every night who had what.
Yeah, and it worked, didn't it? Pretty
That
good.
was fun.
That was fun. Yeah, I remember going out to watch them.
Yeah.
Hey, and Dorothy, how'd you meet Uncle Ernest?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Is that right? All right. We want to hear an interesting story.
Be about 4 years older than
I worked at the courthouse in Burley, and my room.
So you worked at the courthouse in Burley?
I
At the
worked at
courthouse?
the treasurer's office.
Oh, the treasurer's office. Oh, so you were always good with numbers.
I always liked numbers, and,
Wow.
except I can't balance my checkbook too good anymore. But anyway, yeah, and we roomed together, and Ernie was working with at a service station. He was just not too long from the Navy. It was World War II.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, so one night, Marge and I were, after work, were going to a little grocery market just around the corner. Anyway, Marge and Jay were engaged, and I think by then. But anyway, Jay and Ernie happened to come over then, and so they walked back with us. And anyway, Marge and Jay were ahead, and Ernie and I, we didn't have anything to say. I remember how kind of, you shine that word. And then anyway, a couple days later, Ernie called at the courthouse and asked for a date. And that's when it all started. And you know what? It didn't dawn on me till we'd been married, like that he had brought Ernie over there to check me out.
Oh. What a friend!
It just didn't dawn on me that that's what was going on.
That's great. Joanne, would you like to tell something?
I was thinking about Grandpa when you were talking about him a few minutes ago. on the way in, Terry and I stopped in front of Grandma and Grandpa's house. I think it's so cute right now, but I was telling her 2 or 3 things, and one of the things I told her was I can remember sitting on the back porch with Grandpa, and he had on these bib overalls, and he sat there a lot. I just can see him sitting there with his knees kind of up in the air.
Sorry.
And he would get his pocket knife out of his pocket, and he didn't have any teeth. And he would cut an apple in half, maybe quartered it, take the core out, and then he would sit there and scrape. I can see him scraping his knife against his thumb with that apple, and then he would eat the applesauce. And he told me how careful you had to be not to cut your tongue. But I remember sitting there with him a lot of times to do that. And then I mentioned to Alan today, I used to come up and stay in the summers, 3 or 4 summers I got to, for a couple of weeks. And Grandpa worked at the college campus here. Let's see, where are we? What do you call that building? The powerhouse.
That building's gone now.
No, the one with the the stack there.
Smokestack,
Still there, right out by the road.
The old boiler house.
Yeah. Anyway, Grandma would send me with Grandpa's lunch, and she'd fix me a lunch too. And I would meet Grandpa there, and we would sit and eat lunch. And then at one time or another, I think I was in probably all of these buildings with him. It's a good memory I had of him.
Yeah.
Anyway, kind of fun.
How old were you at that time?
Probably 10, 11, flung in there. Dot entertained me a lot. When Grandma would get tired of me and I'd get bored, she'd say, walk out the ranch. So I'd walk out, and then Dot would entertain me.
How old were you?
10 or 11, 12, long in there.
And you'd walk clear out by our house? Wow.
Yeah.
It was different then.
Well, we walked a lot. I walked a lot from town out there too, actually. But
We were out driving around the cemetery, and I was telling Rebecca about, Grandma after Grandpa died, carrying buckets of water on her hips. I can't imagine doing that to the front gate.
Oh my gosh.
That's a long ways.
Yeah.
yeah, it is. Gosh, I was only in kindergarten, and I would walk to Grandma's house after kindergarten. That's a long way to have a little 5-year-old walk.
Let's see, that reminded me
By
of something that
themselves.
Mother told me. When her and Ernie would walk to school, and maybe Glenn, I'm not sure, but she'd say, kids didn't have more than one pair of shoes in those days. And there must have been some little bridge between Grandma's house and the school. And she says we would but really didn't have water under it. She says we would get to that bridge and we'd take our shoes off and put them under the bridge, go to school barefooted. Then after school we'd come back, put our shoes on and go home.
Did they have to do that, or did
No.
they just want to?
No, they just wanted to.
Oh, wow. Alan, do you remember anything that you'd like to share?
My memory isn't really that good anymore. No, I hadn't really been thinking of just listening to the stories.
I have a really good memory of Alan and I together. I was standing out in front of, we weren't very old at all. And I was standing out in front of Aunt Shirley's house. Maybe I was 2. I don't know. But I remember this little snake came right between my legs. And I tried to turn around and tell everybody. I must not have been 2 because I was trying to tell them there was a snake there. And Alan came over and gave me a hug. And I don't know who had a camera back in those days, but they caught the picture of it. And Mom has it of Alan giving me a hug with that little snake.
I've never seen that.
I'll have to bring, next year, I'm going to have to bring, because Mom has some really, really good pictures. And I'll have to
Terry's
bring them.
kids, they always had them that slide. I like that.
Yeah.
Be me.
I remember.
Do you remember the time Deanne said, oh, Aunt Shirley, I
I
just
remember
love
Alan
your
used to have a
house.
snake one
Do you
time.
remember
It's so
that?
cozy.
No, it was.
It's so
No
cozy,
cabin,
and you couldn't turn
no
around.
mine. I don't know if you remember that. And there was a big rattlesnake, and Alan shot it with the.
Oh, yeah, we were
tornado.
coming back from
Was that
that
the
mine up above.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think I had one kid in the tub.
We're laughing at you.
We had
You
that
did,
long
you did.
sink, and we had that kid's wash tub in that, and I had one kid, I think, in that, and one in the tub on the floor. And Deanne was squeezed back in the corner by the table, and oh, Aunt Shirley, I just love your house. It's so cozy.
I did like
turn
it.
around.
Now, Alan and Janet have an interesting story of how they got together. She was from Glendale, California, and Alan was raised in Albion.
So how did you get together?
That's not even ancient history.
That was Janice's doing, I guess.
Well, they were roommates.
Yeah, Janet and I we went on a road trip, and I had, what was it? It was an old red, I don't know, 1963 or something, a big old car. And we went down to California to her house, and then we stopped and went to our house, and Alan happened to be home for the holidays. It must have been Christmas.
Yeah, I think it was.
And anyway, he had a date with Deborah Beecher the night that we got there or something, and he got home really early. And he took Janet and I riding out on the East Hills. And we did all kinds of things. And I remember there was this one, all of a sudden, I wasn't sitting in the middle anymore when we went somewhere, and she was.
Funny how those things work.
You did say you were going to hunt a cowboy, didn't you?
One time I had Janice ask Alan, well, how do you catch a cowboy? Because it was another guy I was thinking about. But anyway, he never did answer us.
Oh, that's funny.
That is ancient history now, unfortunately.
Dan, I should tell him about the time my mother got mad at me because she caught me in the store with her house with her scallops around it.
Oh, no, don't tell that one, Mom.
That was the one we want to hear.
All right, Mom, go ahead.
Tell the story, Amber.
Tell the story.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying how strict my mother was, and my dad wasn't. And anyway, but she was just the best mother in the world, but boy, she made us kids mind. And so, but, and I remember if you didn't mind, she'd make you go out and cut your own willow off the tree. Boy, but they had anyway, in that little town, I think his name was Willie Tremaine, I think, that's what he was. Anyway, he had this store, and my mother would always tell me, don't you ever get caught going in there. I never want to see you in there. But he had in his store a red hat with scallops all around it in the window. Oh, I love that. I just thought if I could just get in and look at that red hat with the scallops on the brim. And my friend was with me. And anyway, she said, but he'd put a sign on his window that say for sale, and then he'd go in and lock his door. But finally one day, we got in there, and we thought, oh, we could try that red hat on. That'll be wonderful. And Glenn and Ernest came by, and they happened to see me in there. And boy, they ran home just as fast as they could, and they told Mother, and boy, I'll tell you, I got more than cutting the switch off the tree. When
Yeah, I remember Grandma making you go get the willer switch.
Yeah.
Don't hear that, yeah.
That one day she had all of us lined up and everybody had a willow in their hand.
I guess you're different with grandkids than they are with your own kids.
Uncle Ern taught us how to ring them starlings' necks. So we were down there climbing up in the trees, getting the robins and whatever birds we could catch. And Grandma caught us. There, all of us, there's 5 of us, me and Kenneth and Bart and Brett and Bobby. We all had to go get a switch. And never forget that. And then Bobby, he took off running. She goes, can't catch us. He was the only one ran.
Can I serve anybody a piece of cake? Excuse me.
I have to tell you another one that Ernie used to tell on his mother. She and, was it Donna? Who was your close friend?
Fontina?
Growing up?
Fontella?
Donna? No.
Oh, Donna, yeah, Donna Hepworth.
Donna Hepworth was your friend?
Yeah.
No, it was.
Wasn't Donna?
No. Anyway, the two of them decided they were going to go pick potatoes and earn a lot of money anyway. So they got their lunch together and they went this one day.
Can somebody help you?
And anyway, they ended up that had a great luncheon like that, but they ended up only enough to pay for their lunch. That was how many potatoes they got picked. I imagine they were great potato pickers too. I always remembered Ernie telling about them and then gonna pick potatoes.
I have an Ernie story. I'm not quite sure during World War II when Ernie was home and my dad was gone, but Mother and I came up to Albion. Dad was gone, and so Mother and I came to Albion, planned on staying for quite some time. And we were only here a little while when the president or the administrator of the Logan Hospital, where Mother had got her nurses training, called her up and said, "Ruby, could you come back and work? We are so short of nurses." So we went back home, but we were here for Christmas. And I remember walking into Grandma's front room, out of the kitchen into the front room, and the big heater vent over the oil or heater there, and there was a tricycle sitting. And Mom always said that Uncle Ernie bought me that tricycle. Aww. And I have a bracelet at home that he bought me when I was up here in the summer one time when we went to Burley, and it has two little hearts on it, and it's when they just started engraving things, and everyone called me Joey, and he had engraved my name Joey on it, and I still have that.
Arrowhead.
Don't let my son see it.
Yeah, then I have one more. Terry reminded me. I can't remember exactly where we were, but Glenn found an arrowhead, and he gave that to me, and I still have that arrowhead. Wow. I dropped it and broke the tip off of it, just the very tip off of it, but I still have it. It's in my jewelry box. Oh, wow. So I have two treasures, one from Ernie and one from Glenn. I don't have my trike anymore, but I have a bracelet.
What happened to the trike?
I don't know. Gary probably wore it out.
How Deanne and Joe got together. They're from Spain and Deanne from Boise, right?
In Spanish class. Oh. He was taking first year Spanish, because I had taken Spanish in high school. I think it was third year Spanish that he was taking. And I was taking third year Spanish.
So. Why were you taking Spanish?
Because he didn't speak English.
And they put me on probation because I couldn't pass any classes, so I need to bring my GPA up to an easy class. And I barely passed Spanish too. So.
One story that I have to tell about that when we met, he was, a very nice person, and but he couldn't pass classes because he could not understand. So I told him I'd help him study, and he had another friend, and I helped them study. We'd study together. And I remember this one, his name was Dr. Levin, and he could not, he'd taken U.S. history 3 times. This was the last time he was going to be able to take it. And Dr. Levin made these tests that were multiple choice and true and false that were, a question was like almost a whole page. And he'd go from negative to positive to, just really trying to. So I said, Joe, you just sit right here, right next to me. And we sat right in the front row. Dr. Levin was right here, and we sat right there. And I said, I'll write over here on the side. I'll put the letters in the whatever it needs to be. And you just copy. And we did that the entire semester. The final test came, and we did the same thing. And when we got it back, he had an F and I had an A. And immediately, without thinking, Joe shot his hand up and said, Dr. Levin, how can she have an A and I have an F when we have the exact same answers? There were 2 tests, and in each row, every other row, he passed out the different test.
I had to sit there for an hour. That was the most embarrassing. No. For an hour, I just want to hide.
But he passed him.
The average was good in the year.
Well, I had wondered, we've never asked during all these years.
I gotta tell you one, a good one. I didn't have any money when I started. I heard a sheep for a year and a half, so I had $3,000. And by the time I paid room and board the first year, they were my $3,000, so I didn't have too much money. But there used to be a store downtown, Bonanza 88. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Mm-hmm. And everything was 88 cents in there, like the dollar store, everything's up down. So I bought the best looking shirt, Hawaiian shirt.
For 88 cents.
For 88 cents. So I wore it and finally I washed it. And by the time I washed it, it came to here. So we went to a dance the other night. It was at the Student Union of the Boise State. Boy, that furnace was cranking 120. So I had a sweater because it was winter, but God, the heater was so hot. And the auntie said, "Take your sweater off." I said, "No, it's cold again." I was sweating like this. If I take my sweater off, the shirt. I said, man, that was a mess. I went home. I lost 10 pounds. That day from sweating so much. Bonanza 88. Man, that was a good looking shirt. And you washed it.
And my memory is when we always looked forward. I mean, Linda, Margaret, and I were like this. We were together all the time and played together constantly. But when Deanne came home, we would fight over her. We would. We just loved it when Deanne came home. And sometimes Aunt Bernice would bring us some of your old clothes, and we got to share. You would share with us, and we loved that. But mostly Deanne was this sophisticated girl from the city. And we learned tan shoes, pink shoelaces, and what about the purple people eaters? and all of these things that she would do. Anyway, then the other day some lady came in and she wanted peanut butter, and for some reason I got to thinking about Deanne, and I have this peanut butter on my finger, and I looked and I couldn't bring the peanut butter. I picked the peanut butter off the top of my mouth, and then I had this peanut butter and it went on and on. And we loved it. It was so funny. And I think one of the most devastating times of my life was when Deanne finally graduated to the adult table, and we were just devastated. It was horrible.
I was too. You know why? They put me right next to Uncle Almy, and Uncle Almy didn't have teeth, and so everything was
that the time you
everywhere.
used to tell that story about again?
No, this was when I had to eat next to Uncle Almy, and I was devastated. And so I think I told Mom, and then I got to go back. I wanted to go back in the kitchen because I didn't want to sit next to Uncle Almy.
I could remember every Christmas. We would go home when the kids were young. And anyway, it was so fun at Christmas. And we'd all gather in that front room, remember, Glenn's? And anyway, we all had to have a talent show. And we all had to show a talent. And none of us were any talented. And my mother would just sing away. And she couldn't sing any better than I could. And my only talent was I could stand on my head longer than anybody could. And they just walk around me, remember that? And they'd get tired of me of standing there, but I just still stand there on my head. That was my only talent. And I can remember Ernest wanted to do it. I can remember Ernest wanted to learn how to do it. And so, but the only way he could do it was lean up against a wall. So, do you remember? Jan remembers it. So, but we used to have so much fun because none of us were talented. What was your talent?
Listening.
Remember, you used to make those wonderful donuts and root beer, and we'd have donuts and root beer.
Yeah. Homemade root beer.
Homemade root beer and donuts.
Yeah, Dot and I used to bottle root beer.
Like it explode.
I love that yeasty flavor of root beer.
That's what I
Used
say.
to go down and pick cherries every year.
And Aunt Shirley was our 4-H teacher. Do you remember our 4-H teacher? Yeah, she was the saint. And she was, we were making, and I make banana bread in the store, and every time I make banana bread, I remember Aunt Shirley making us mash the bananas right, and then she would cut the banana bread, and then we'd have to judge each piece of banana bread, and sometimes it wasn't mashed good enough, and I learned how to make good banana bread.
I remember we was all making them angel food cakes or whatever they are, the one with the hole in them.
Yeah.
I remember all of you, Marcia, and all of you gals was over there
Yeah.
doing that.
Well, Mom
Had a freezer full of
Mom
flowers.
taught the 4-Hers how to cook on a wood stove. That's what Mary Linda Mindy was telling me, that she learned how to cook on a wood stove from Mom.
I remember we had to do a demonstration, and Linda and I did it, and we were all really dirty, and then we went in and we changed into these our clean little dresses and came out and finished the rest. And I remember him saying we were just going to give our clothes to Margaret so she could get them dirty.
Yeah, Linda and Janice would wear them 3 or 4 days and they still wouldn't be dirty enough, so put them on Margaret for an hour and they were dirty enough.
That would be you.
Remember you guys did up here on the at the campus, and that one time you did your demonstration.
Oh, really?
I can't remember where, but I know we were good. When we got done, you had us practice.
Wasn't Comish Hall, isn't that the one that had the kitchen in it? Is that the one, the dining room?
I don't remember.
I don't know. I just wondered.
Oh
if
yeah,
that's why
they had
made
to
it.
practice till they had it right.
We did.
I think you go all this. I think my dearest one of growing up and like that, and every October deer hunt time, I think of it again. I still do. And that Alan was in on it. You had quite a bunch of them at different times, didn't you, Alan? But I know that first they would go up and camp, and Grandma and I milked the cows while they were
I
gone.
remember that.
But anyway,
Bernice and I were supposed to cook breakfast.
Bernice says she'd rather
Deer
go
hunt.
watching the
No,
film.
she said she was
Deer
they
hunt.
slept in.
Oh,
They slept in.
Deer hunt.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And poor Aunt Dorothy and Grandma would come back starved from getting up so early in the morning, and these two'd still be in bed.
Because we talked all
Remember
night.
how we'd walk up there to ride down Kathleen?
I remember there were a bunch of Holstein cows, and I don't remember how many, maybe 15 or something, but you milked by hand, and they all looked so much alike except for this one white cow, and she was the orneriest thing. But anyway, to be sure that we knew when we were done, we would mark on the wall there in where we milked them, so that we knew we had them all done, like that. But anyway,
Wouldn't you put a mark on the cow?
Huh?
It seems like you put a mark on the cow. You put a chalk mark on the cow when you finished.
I don't remember.
Remember, that's when you went deer hunting? Yeah, I remember that. We'd walk up and meet. But I could remember on those deer hunts, we'd come down and Shirley and I'd sleep together. While they all remember that, while they all went up hunting. And she and I were supposed to get up and get breakfast for everybody. And my mother went out and milked the cows.
Yeah, we
And
drove
anyway, Shirley and I stay up all night trying to tell each other stories and laugh. And we stay all night awake laughing. And my mother would come in for milk and the cows. Oh, she'd get mad at us, remember, because we didn't have breakfast. She gets so mad at us.
Proud of Fairmont, I could do that, you know. But anyway, the first years, when Almond was quite small, but the first years they would take a wagon with the team of horses and like that. Then through the years, they graduated to a tractor, wasn't that what that was? And they had the horses and that, but anyway, they made a lot of memories up there. Uncle Glenn, he was, I think he must have been the chief cook. We would bake, we took cakes with them, they fried chicken, and I think right up there, just a regular. The guys still go back up there, the grandkids and like that, they still know where Deer Camp was. But anyway, and then like he said, with their list, we would go out after dark and the car lights signal back if they got this different one. We had the same list, so we went down with your car lights. So anyway, we would watch them come out on there with the lantern up for this same spot and the signal back and forth. But you know, there isn't an October does go up and by that I don't still remember that. I think you probably didn't you probably have maybe 10, 15, no, 15 or so, didn't you, Alan?
That would go? Oh, the times we went up, well, I think they started in the 1940s. And the last time was 1976, I think was the last year that they went. And then we went once after my father died in 1978, and we went up in 1980 one time.
You had, Joanne, you had some of those pictures, didn't you, last year or 2 years ago?
Well, they invited Clint and Gary to go with them, and so, yeah, we have good memories, because Gary and Clint talked about it a lot, like, it was great, and they thought Ernie and Glenn were the best cooks. And also the home cooks said good things.
Yeah.
Well, there was Uncle Dean and Swartzens, and Keith and Mandy always went.
Dean went some with them too, Deanne.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. I remember her saying that you throw smoke signals or something, you know.
No, the headlights on the
Oh,
car, and
headlights,
they had lanterns.
Well, one year they decided I was going to learn how to milk cows with them. I think I'd milk 2, and Alan would milk about 5, and Dorothy'd milk all the rest of them. But anyway, Janice didn't like to stay up at the house by herself, so she'd come down to our place and stay with the girls while we were milking cows. And one night, I got the fire a little bit too hot, and I said, if the wall should get on fire, throw some water on it. When I got home, they had every bowl, glass, pan, pot, everything in the kitchen that would hold water was sitting all around the floor. It took me till midnight to clean up the mess.
How many cows did they have?
They were prepared.
How many cows did they have?
About 25, I think.
25 seemed like.
What did you do, sell the milk or what?
About 25, wasn't it?
They would put it in the milk cans and then put the milk cans in the crate to keep it warm or cold.
And then,
And then the challenge truck would come and pick up the milk
Really?
cans.
What's that challenge? Is that the
company?
The company.
The company.
Or Kraft came later.
Yeah, now unless you got 1,000 of them, they don't come by.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, that was our living back in those days, you know. It was
Sanitary.
Yeah. Talking about the milking, have you heard of the melon cabs?
Had to be
Yeah,
timed around the cow milk.
they have huge dairies here in the
Yeah,
county.
that's our daughter-in-law's main account,
Oh,
melon cab, you know.
yeah.
When she was pregnant, she said, you had to go count cows in Malta, you know, snow, and said, I'm not going, you know, to count 99,000 cows.
I have one other memory, and that was when Joanne brought Clinton home, and
I
so
see
when
what
they
you're
married you after we got through with him, we thought he was the most wonderful thing in the
Oh,
world.
yeah,
Clinton.
Hung on his arms, he hung on his arms.
And I remember he came out and he roller skated with us.
Who's that?
Clinton.
Oh, is that right?
We were all in love with him.
Yeah, we just had such a crush on Clint, and he put up with us so wonderfully. I just have really good memories of just how romantic that was. And I remember when you got married, and we all ended up, I don't remember, we all had car trouble or something getting to your
Didn't
wedding.
make it in time for the reception.
Yeah, and it was just.
I was so upset. I kept looking at my clock all night, worrying about where mother was just frantic.
Yeah, and Grandma had ridden with us because Shirley and Glenn, I don't remember, your car was full, or I don't remember. She rode with us and we had car trouble in Malta, I think, and didn't make it down there. But that was my very first wedding, and it was so romantic. And you had a hope chest that Uncle Romaine had built for you, and all the quilts and all of your trousseau set out.
I know, can you believe it?
I really
I even hung out my 90s. I can't.
Hey, Nancy,
I have pictures of it, and I look at them and I'm thinking, oh.
is there, you ought to put that leftover chicken in the fridge.
Yes, that's right.
It's been sitting out too long now.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when Grandma milked the cows, every time I ever saw her milk the cows, she milked the cows with a dress.
Yeah.
She never milked that. She never milked that.
Just put it there.
Yeah, Grandma always wore a dress.
She just never had pants.
She didn't
have-
We gave her some.
Yeah, I don't think at that time, you
I don't
know.
remember Grandma ever having a pair of pants.
Yeah, I don't think at that time, you know, probably
Don't remember Grandma what?
Grandma.
I don't remember Grandma Clark ever wearing anything but a dress.
No, I don't think she
She
did.
owned a pair of pants.
Yeah.
I don't think she ever did.
Do you remember your mother, Bernice?
I think she wanted.
Do you remember your mother ever wearing pants?
What?
Do you remember your mother ever wearing pants other than a dress?
Whose mother was that?
Your mother,
My mother?
yeah.
What'd she have?
Did she ever wear pants?
No,
Joe, I can't hear very well in here. I didn't hear. So,
she always wore a dress.
Did your mom ever wear pants?
Joe said,
No. Did your mother ever wear pants? Did Grandma ever wear pants?
who'd have read the pants?
This is this way every day.
See, she's got her hair in.
I know my mother read pants.
She has it on. She just... Did your mom ever wear pants? Did she ever wear pants?
No, they wouldn't have been red if she had them.
And then I gotta put up with that. I said, can you believe?
And I never get out of them.
If I tell people, you know, can you believe what your dad asked me? You know, tell the kid, if my mom ever wore her pants. You know, I said, no, I didn't say if your mom ever wore her pants. You know,
Oh,
and that's what then my kids, they believe. And I said, how can you talk to grandma like that? You know? And I said, grandma, yeah.
If anybody would like to take any food home, please come and get it now. We would love to share it, so just come and get
Deanne.
what you want. There's some take-home bowls in there that maybe I can put a little bit of extra money and for the hall and get some of these take-home bowls if any of you want any to take home.
Deanne?
Yeah.
Oh, just a minute. Is this from you to me?
Yeah,
Over my fence?
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
Bernice,
We want to see.
you ruined my reputation. You know that.
Well, Joe, I fake because I can't hear sometimes. You fake so you didn't have to get dinner today.
I did a pretty good job, didn't I?
And that is the truth. I told Kenneth to go out and look for you, and he wouldn't do it.
I did.
Or Gene, I meant. He wouldn't do
I
it.
did.
I met him at the car. I was the first one to meet him over there. I put the red carpet in front of him. So, didn't I?
He didn't want me to help him if he went down. He didn't want me getting him out the mouth.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
what we're
I'll
laughing
survive
at
this.
Die.
I'll survive this one.
No, Don't want me practicing my CRP on you.
I survived thank you to Alan. Yeah.
Well, what we're laughing at right now is Joe was really sick this morning, so he said. And anyway, he was supposed to help Deanne with the dinner. But he came in, he kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And he's never like that. But anyway, Deanne was doing everything herself, and he went outside because he was so sick and everything. And Jean came in. Jean came in, and I said, Jean, I said, I'm kind of worried about Joe. I said, he's never sick, but maybe you should go out and see what he's doing. He's all right, just like that. And I said, well, maybe you should go see. And he said, no. I said, well, maybe he's passed out. And Jean said, oh, there's a tree out there you'll find. And now here he's just doing fine. So I think he was playing.
I told you.
You'll never know that, Joe.
Alan gave me a horse tranquilizer. So I'm doing good now. Yeah, that's why. It's a good thing she didn't hear, otherwise she'd tell everybody, yeah, Alan gave him a horse tranquilizer.
I think the funniest story ever is when you're telling about when you first
Jan,
came to America.
this has been
trying
a
to
fun.
make bread,
Oh,
and the horse ate the dough.
he would have laughed down. I don't know if you ever heard me.
You
Yeah.
ever hear that story?
Yeah.
Tell that, Joe. That is so
I just got
funny.
over here, I never cooked in my life, and I was only 18. So my father said, he was my sheepherder, and I was the camp tender. So I was the cook. So he told me, we need to make bread. So I used to make bread every other day, one of those Dutch oven breads. And he said, use 2 cups of water, warm water, 2 cups of flour, and yeast. So, just do the dough after that, So I mixed it up. The dough was dry. So I put some more water in there. So then it was too wet, so I put more flour in there. And pretty soon, man, I got a big mess in there, And that thing wasn't ready. So my dad we had 2 horses. One for my dad, to go to sheep, and I had mine tied to the commissary. So that thing wasn't going anywhere, so I just threw it back in the commissary over there for the horse. So he got a hold of that thing, But pretty soon, man, it started foaming out of there. I said, oh my God. What do I do? I couldn't go to my dad, he was too far in there to do what to do. And I said, man, I was thinking about sticking my hand in the horse's mouth and getting him. I might lose my arm over here, I said, do I take the rifle and shoot him, put him at the misery, And so pretty soon people, and everything just came out of there, I said, man, I took the shovel, I buried that thing so fast before my dad came, So then I tried the next loaf and it turned out pretty good, By the time he got over there, he didn't know anything happened.
You better eat your cake.
Oh, can you get out?
I'm gonna.
Well, I
can get. No,
Here, let me move.
No,
so-
there's room. I've got room.
There, can you get out now?
Yeah, I can get out.
You let me get my cane there.
I'm gonna go over there and sit